welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Adora and Daisy.
How y'all doing? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we do have a mental health advocate, owner, podcaster. I think it's ironic that we not ironic. I think it's pretty cool that we get to have someone on the podcast where we get the chance to ask you about your mental health, because that's what we do on our podcast. We check in on the mental health before we get into our conversation. So, how's your mental health?
My mental health is great. It's doing good.
Doing good?
Yeah.
You know, took some sessions at Inception.
You know what? I got stuff at home that you ain't even seen at the Inception. That
Really?
Yeah.
They
gotta talk about it.
different level.
Yeah. So I don't like what you see at Inception is not like it's not a game for me. It's not something. I mean, it is a game. It's kind of fun, but it's not something I'm just like, hey, come and do this. It's like, no, I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. You know, like, so what I got at home is like, I take care of myself in ways that most people haven't thought of yet.
Mm-hmm. We was just talking about that, like, just even something as, well, it's not even small, but even something as mental health, like, we don't think about that.
No, because as a society, we're disconnected really from our mind and our bodies. We don't even have an understanding that that our mind affects our body. We're just kind of coming to this understanding, you know, therapy has just become this buzzword in trauma within the last few years. And we are a big proponent for pushing that. But now it's like, okay, let's hurry up and get the people, for my understanding, outside of the traditional mental health model, I want to get everybody up to date on like what's the real stuff out here that really is helpful and effective, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So go ahead and let the people know who you are and what you have going on.
Well, my name is David Mccullar. I'm the founder and CEO of Inception. Inception is the first mental health gym. We use 21st century healing technology to help people overcome stressors and traumas, which is everybody. Everybody deals with stress. Everybody deals with trauma. But we use technology to, address the body. Most people, again, in mental health are thinking about mental health from just the psyche. But where is all your thoughts, feelings, and emotions taking place? Inside your body, right? So your body is the roadmap to really how you're doing in the day to day. When people say, well, how you doing? Let's ask a mental health question, how you doing? You can see how they're doing. You may not be able to look at the specific cues because you're not trained enough. But when you get trained enough, you can see how people are doing because you wear your mental health on your body. You know, it's not like you hiding things. You can try to hide, but at the end of the day, all these cardiovascular diseases, strokes, heart attacks, mental health is a big proponent of that. Mm-hmm. So you can hide, but, Dan Gilbert suffered a stroke, right? Mm-hmm. Where was that stroke from? That's mental health issues.
Yeah.
What is the mental health issue? It's you have to manage all of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so your brain is going to go in a state of protection. And if it stays in that state of protection based on these things, again, your nervous system behind the scenes is revved up. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, if it's revved up all the time, in our culture, we say, oh, the heart attacks or the high blood pressure came from eating too much salt. Right? That's what I heard, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
You need to lower your sodium. Yeah. You need to lower your salt intake. No, black people have been stressed out. And so what is stress, again, underneath the surface? Your heart rate is going to increase. That blood pressure is going to increase. So what would happen if you stayed in that elevated state for so long with everything being increased? Heart rate, blood pressure. What does a stroke sound like? It's an explosion in the brain. What does a heart attack sound like? There's blockages. And two, when you have blockages in your body, then you add on these stressors, the body can only adapt so much. So there you go. It doesn't matter how much money you got. It
seems like it get worse.
You got $1 billion.
My money, my problem.
And now you're having a stroke. So, and I've seen that across the board. I mean, I've been doing this is my 16th year this month. And I mean, I've trained billionaires. One of them, he's not even here anymore. Trained this guy out in Vancouver. That whole family was looking to use the type of technologies we use. So So yeah, it's a widespread thing, and I went down that rabbit hole to tell everybody that because most people think that they don't have something going on. Like what do you mean? Like unless you just live in a bubble, and even in that bubble, that's something going on because lack of stimulus can weaken you too. So you got two things going on. You got too much stressors in our environment, right? We too hard.
Right.
We waking up hard. You too hard. Heart attack, stroke. Then you got ones where our parents, they saw those environments that we're in, not healthy environments. So let me shield them from all of this, right? But then they shield you from everything. So now, you ever heard the statement, my heart don't pump no Kool-Aid? Well, they heart pumping mad Kool-Aid. Why? Because they don't have the resiliency within their nervous system. Back in the day when we played ball, we saw white boys. We always thought we gonna dog these white boys. Why? Because we felt like we came from a harsher condition. But their condition has stressors too. It's just different forms of stressors, right? And lack of, again, stimulus, lack of having to go through any type of adversity, it weakens you. Yeah. So we got two things going on in mental health right now.
You said so much in like a small period of time. I didn't even get to congratulate you on your 16 years.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
That's
well, you gotta stop me because I'll just keep going.
So, what made you even get into this mental health field?
It's interesting. I never thought I was in the mental health field. I didn't think I was in the mental health field. There was no, again, 16 years ago. There was no label on what we were doing. Like, I just thought I was trying to improve myself and try to help myself.
Yeah.
Listen, people go to the traditional gym, right? They use those tools in there. When I saw this tool that I have, I was like, what? It can help me, like, increase my mood, my memory, my ability to focus and concentrate. I'm thinking about how to get better. But the anxiety and panic attacks I was having, that really was a thing of, okay, this can help me with that too.
Okay.
But I was into just self-help, self-development. I don't know if you know Anthony Robbins. You guys heard of Tony Robbins?
I've heard of him.
So Tony Robbins Tony Robbins is kind of like the father of coaching. If you've ever heard of coaching, like people doing coaching, life coaching, he's like the father of that. And I listened to a lot of his stuff early 2001. I was like 21. I know, right? So I was like 21. I still had these cassettes. So I listened to all these Anthony Robbins tapes, and I'm mind blown at the information that they're giving me. This is really what I'm starting to learn, physiology, and understand that the mind-body connection, because he brought on people like Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, a bunch of other people in that field who were in traditional medicine and spirituality, and that just opened me up. And then years later, I was having anxiety and panic attacks, right? And then, I saw that self-help stuff that I was learning was like, there's a part of it that's positive thinking and self-help and will yourself through. And then there's the other part of it that you can't will yourself through, and that's the mental health aspect. And that's really how I got into it, just really off necessity, trying to help myself. And then we created that business. But again, I didn't know it was mental health. I didn't create the mental health gym title until, what year is this? 2023, 2018.
So you was in the field,
I was in the field. I was helping people. I was saying all the terminology. I just,
didn't really label it.
I still don't think of it. I still don't think of myself. When I hear y'all say mental health advocate, I'm like, like that, to me, that doesn't represent who I am, because it's so, my problem is it's so small in terms of how they've created. If you start to go into mental health, the field, and understand, the creations of it and everything, it's like, is limiting mental health. What is mental health? Mental health is physical health. Mental health is all of this. Mental health is life. Like, there's no just, wake up, people talking about taking a little mental health hygiene. And they have been doing this for long. So now you see the consumer market coming into mental health and making things real cute. Where I'm like, look, our people's dealing with stress and trauma and real shit, right? Yeah. So I ain't got time to be sitting here talking to you about taking bubble baths.
Right.
I'm not saying that bubble baths aren't helpful,
right.
but what our people coming in, we coming in with some real stuff.
So we need ice baths.
That's why we calling it a gym.
Yeah.
I had somebody love her. She always calls it the mental health spa, and I had to correct her. This is not a spa. It's not a spa. Why is it a gym? Because we had somebody fly in from Texas the other day. She's going in to do the session, the same thing you did, the circuit. She's going into the first session. My mom said she comes out and the eye mask was soaked.
She was crying?
Yeah. We got it comes out.
I believe it though.
People come in and their mental, emotional stuff have to come out. Whatever you suffocated in there, it's in there. So how do you get it out? Inception help you get it out. That's why we got tissues at each station. It don't mean that everybody's gonna cry, but trust me, you come in, you do it enough, you gonna crack, you know, that emotional. No, nothing wrong with it. It's the body trying to regulate. We made it weak because it was weak. If I see you crying, I'm gonna think, okay, I can take advantage of you, right? So that's where they got that come from. Why we had to look hard in the hood. We had to look hard because we saying don't mess with me. That's why we had to look hard.
I feel that.
I need to be safe. So I need to mean. Some people mean mugging, you know, and it's just like overboard mean mugging. But at the same time, we just grew up in environments that weren't safe. So we trying to say, hey, don't mess with me, you know. But what happens when that's your environment all the time? And then let's say you now go into an environment where there is safety. Why you still mean mugging?
I was literally going through that when I moved to Arizona because Arizona was just like such a peaceful people place. Like everybody's speaking to you, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Or how you feeling? You know, just general conversation. I literally found my son babysitter at a pool just having a conversation with this young lady. And it's like, I couldn't dare do that in Detroit. It's nothing like people, you walking down the street just looking because maybe somebody look nice and they, what you looking at? Like, it's different. So it's like, we so accustomed to being hard. It's like, mentally, like, are we okay?
So there's a thing where we, you know, I feel like and that's not just, you know, here, that's in other places, right? We have to go through a rehabilitation to be able to soften ourselves up. It doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself. Some of the best fighters go into the fight relaxed. They're already soft. They limber. They just alert and ready, you know, but they're limber, they're soft. We're alert and ready and hard. And hard. So here it is. If you're hard, right, like this, you locked down. I'm being very demonstrative in it, but let's say you stuck like that. The muscles, that contraction, that constriction, the blood can't flow properly now, right? So now the heart has to pump harder. Oh, I had a stroke. Oh, I had a heart attack. Where was that from? Again, you go look at it all. It's a mixture of all the environments that you've been in up to now. That's who you are. How you reacted and responded to those environments, that's who you are. You know? And it doesn't mean that you're a product of your environment, because I had guys coming out of jail and they're a totally different person because they had to respond differently to that environment. And once they learn how to respond differently to that environment, that's when they begin to start to master themselves. That's what I feel like is once we can understand, we stop being having a knee-jerk reaction to everything around us in life. That's our culture, knee-jerk reaction. Instead of being proactive and being the stimulus versus waiting for the stimulus to say, how do I respond to this? No, I need to be the seed first, right? And then, you know, go from there.
Yeah.
So, I don't mean to go backwards, but when you started the gym, what was your life like at the time?
Oh man, I was reclusive. I wasn't going out. Yeah, man, I was living. I moved back from Miami. I lived in South Florida for 6 years. So what you talking about? I saw it. You imagine me from 2001, pre all the internet. I moved down to South Florida, right? I'm coming from Detroit. All the language and terminology. We wearing Cardis, we're wearing Coogis. We getting shot over Cardis. We getting shot over Coogis. I heard growing up getting shot over troop jackets and Jordans. We all heard that, right? Mm-hmm. When I moved there, they kept asking me, where you from? And I say Detroit. And they be like, but no, where you from? I'm like, what you mean? Where you from? I'm from Detroit. No, man, but where you from? They wanted to know where I was from in terms of country. Because they didn't even see it the same way. I'm like, I'm from Detroit. They're like, no, where you, like, you from Africa? You from, where you from? I'm from Jamaica. I'm from Haiti. Mm-hmm. And the pride that they have, because they get their boat stopped. Yeah. Their boat stopped early. Mm-hmm. Their boat stopped early before it got to the United States. So they have a little bit more, the islanders, they have way more unification and Jamaicans, they're my homies, man. They hard as hell, but they chill too.
They real chill.
They chill. That's what I like. That both my Haitians, they chill too sometimes. And so I saw that. Yeah. I saw how they were different than us. Mm-hmm. That culture was way more soft. I would go meet women for the first time and they kissing me on the cheek, and I'm like, what is this? What's going on? They like me.
It's like culture though, yeah.
I'm like, why every girl who didn't know me kissed me on the cheek? And then I was like, wow, this is a part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And so that was like a shock for me, at that time. But I had to move back home because I was dealing with anxiety and panic attacks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think, if you ever been to South Florida and you stayed some time there, I had to come back to Detroit. I love Detroit, but I'm not in Detroit right now. I'm in Metro Detroit, but I love it. But at the same time, South Florida is South Florida.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah. They're like friendlier. They're more people. Like, it's normal for them to interact with people here. You got to be standoffish on who you interact with, or. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, we're cold too because we live in a cold climate. So again, let's talk about the environment, right? When you're in a warm environment, it's easy to be relaxed when the sun out all the time and that vitamin D hitting you. Vitamin D. Right? When you getting this intermittent weather, and 1 minute is 80, next minute is 30.
And it's 30 longer than it's 80. Listen.
So I think if you look at this cold immersion therapy. And now people are starting to use, you said, cold tubs. Mm-hmm. That's becoming a popular thing. We had a cryotherapy at one of my other locations. So we are familiar with cold therapy and being able to dose yourself with cold so that your body can adapt to it. So guess what? We adapt it. Mm-hmm. We go through it every year when we don't want to.
Every year.
So they're literally putting these cold tubs in facilities and charging money to take a cold dip. When, winter, man, take a cold Detroit shower.
Right.
That's all you need.
I could only imagine it. I don't like being cold, so.
So we adapted that way in terms of being a little bit harder, because I've been on the phone with some people in down south, and they were like, "Are y'all okay?" Talking to me and my mom, like, is everything okay? Everything cool? And I'm talking to my mom, like, why they keep saying that? Like. I'm like, do you feel like we attacking them? She was like, no. I was like, damn, we just hard or something? Like, I'm just passionate. I'm passionate. I'm no nonsense. Some people may take that as tough. I just think that, that's growing up in Detroit with a mom and a dad and seeing them both go through tough times together and seeing them come from the hood and elevating and trying to elevate us, but at the same time not overprotecting us and spoiling us. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about my experience at Inception. So back when, before we came, I was in like maniac mode. Like, I could not sleep. I would be up for like 72 hours at a time. I was trying to balance my work life, like my 9-to-5 life, and my business with the podcast life, and just like my personal life. And at the time, I was like grieving at the same time because it was my uncle. It was around the time my uncle 1 year death anniversary. So when I went, mentally, I was really messed up. I didn't know how messed up I was. I just knew like I was just having long days. I wasn't sleeping. When I would try to fall asleep, I couldn't stay asleep. Like, that's why I just said I was a maniac mind. So like after we left, like it was a great experience. I've learned things about myself that I didn't know. Like, I think it's the thoughts that come to me now. So, okay, fast forward to today, I'm able to sleep. Like, I'm able to sleep like at least 8 hours if I don't have too much to do. So, looking back, you don't really know what you be going through while you going through it.
Cause it just, you become so immune to it.
Yeah.
You put it to the back of your mind. Like, it's never, us as a culture, like as a community, like we never cater to our problems for real. Like, we just like, it's here, it's what it is. I don't know, it is what it is. Like, a lot of us are like that, so we don't really know how to even approach or heal from our problems. Like,
Well, you think we've been trained that way.
That's what I'm saying. Our
We've been
community.
conditioned that way,
Yeah.
right? Like, so slavery stuff happens. I mean, you see people, and not all of our people were slaves too. Just so we know that. Like, you got to go back and look in your history. It's a chance you might not even been a slave. This is what I've seen in certain people. But for instance, as I say this, we've been conditioned to deal with stressors and keep going. Not take the time to process and integrate. And so when I mean process and integrate, this is a very systematic way of doing that.
Right.
Like what you talked about, I already knew. I was like, okay, that's what you're dealing with. But how are you sleeping?
I was not getting no sleep.
And now you're sleeping well. That right there means your health did a total, I don't call it 360 because you're back, but 180, right? Because the sleep is the way that your body repairs itself. Sleep is recovery. Right? So I always ask people, how did you sleep? How did you sleep? How do I know it's working? How did you sleep?
baby, I was in there snoring. I was in there snoring.
Yeah, I was not getting no sleep, and for the life of me, like, I knew it was stuff wrong. I knew that I had stuff to do, and even when I would try to relax my mind, I could not relax, like, for nothing. It was to the point when I was getting my nails done, she was like, relax your hand. And I'm like, I am relaxed, but, like, whole time I'm not relaxed.
The massage therapist does it. When they massaging, they're saying, give me this arm, relax this arm. The problem is there's two different versions of you. There's you, who's your consciousness, this is the reason why you're supposed to do this work, so you can get in contact with that to realize who you really are. You're not your body. Mm-hmm. Your body is just it's a vessel that you inhabit. I call it Venom. We make these movies, but they showcase something. Venom, the movie, it's a symbiote that we live in. And because they've disconnected us mind from body in terms of understanding that the mind affects the body affects the mind, right? When you are in fight or flight mode, everything is just go, go, go. And you lose contrast, because if you stay stuck in that, you don't have the contrast of what slowed down feels like. This is what happened during the pandemic, right? Everybody was go, go, go. And they was like, whoop, stop. Go in the house, stay in the house. That right there is trauma. Understand what trauma is. Trauma is so simple what trauma is. It's about how the body is responding to a highly stressful event. That's it. People are making it about the events. Mm-hmm. Well, my dog this or that. It's not about the events. The events is just a stimulus. How you respond to that event. So when the pandemic came, everybody like, yo, the people who were in fight or flight that had to put the pad on the brake, they were going crazy, right? You saw all of them. They couldn't stay still. They going to Atlanta. Where I'm going, I can't stay still because
they couldn't be alone.
The moment that you sit down and you get calm and you get relaxed, guess what happens? Contrast shows up, and that's what you don't want to see. You don't want to see the contrast, because the contrast shows you why are your hands so stiff? Why are your thoughts and your emotions so loud? You know, now you got contrast. Now you're like, oh, no. So I got to get up and go do it. Jamie Foxx. I don't know what's going on with him, but I saw years ago, and I said, this guy's stuck in fight or flight. Because he said he always had to have somebody around him. What does that mean? I constantly need some stimulus. I constantly need to be in the mix of things. Because what I'm trying to do is to recreate that fight or flight, which it is the stress response, so I can stay up there. It's like we've become addicts of our own nervous system. And we've become, like a lot of people, they like being up there because that's the safety that they know. So the moment you start to try to change that safety, hey, relax. But I don't know relaxation. I know stress. I know trauma. I know defense, because that's what I'm in. So when you trying to tell me relax, well, I'm trying to relax, but my body is like, now that my mind has kept saying, you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe. The body kept saying, I'm not safe, lock down, I'm not safe, lock down. So when you try to pry it open, those patterns that's fired over and over and over and over and over and over, it's all throughout your whole body down to your toes. Because again, the body moves how you move. Mentally, emotionally, and physically. Mental, emotional, that's movement. Thoughts is movement. We can measure thoughts. Yeah. We can measure emotions. That's movement. But when you're stuck, see, you were stuck. That's it. People coming in,
I knew
they
that
stuck.
wasn't normal because that had never happened to me before. Like I didn't not sleep because of a breakup. I did not sleep for certain things, but when I tried to go to sleep, I could not sleep. It was, you know how you like sleep, but you're not sleep, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's different brainwave patterns, right? You have delta all the way up to gamma frequencies. Delta is a slower moving frequency. Delta has to do with more sleep cycle. Delta, then theta. Theta is a meditative type of frequency. And theta frequency is what actually kids are in from the ages from 0 to 7. They walk around in a hypnagogic trance-like state. So they're like a sponge. They're just taking in everything. They remembering everything. And they're not trying to refute the information either. They're not processing through the information. Shit. Yeah. Shit. Yeah. Shit. You see how we're robots? You see how the programming, because we're in a slower moving, this is the time that you really supposed to educate your kids and train them. They say this thing, well, how old is a kid supposed to, at what time is a kid supposed to learn?
At 1.
What?
At 6 months.
The womb.
The womb, yeah, really.
What's your first environment? What's your first environment?
The womb.
The mother's womb. Everything that your mother is feeling, you're experiencing in there. If there's stress hormones in there, then you bathing in a cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol. You backstroking in it. So that's why you come out stressed out, because your mother was stressed out. So now you are already stressed out and traumatized, and you just came out the womb. Yeah. Right?
That makes sense.
And if she was stressed out and traumatized during the pregnancy, guess what? She probably ain't gonna be no better afterwards. Because now you hear the postpartum, right? What effect does that have on the body? So there's a domino effect that happens, in terms of everything that we do, and you have to be able to look and see, hey, Daisy, how did you adapt to that? Where'd you grow up and how did you adapt to it? And then two, how did you get programmed by it, and what limitations are there based on that programming? Those are the questions that I ask myself. And I start to make lists and start to see, like specifically with money, we're really programmed. That's why we can't get money, because we don't have the emotional health first. Because we go get the money because we want to stun to show people we got the money to now feel better about ourselves. You see this bad cycle that we do? It's like,
oh, it's worse now.
It's terrible.
It's at an all-time high actually right now.
And what it is truly the matrix. Because what it is that powerful black women, your whole experience takes place in your body. And so when you realize that all you have to do is think and feel the way that you want to feel, to change the way that you want to feel. And guess what? Now you powerful, that you don't have a middleman, which is capitalism, to your emotions and how you feel, Because everything we do is based on how we feel and trying to get out of that state of being, So when I use all these technologies and therapies, I use 80 of them. I use 80 different ones to try to help myself. And I start really realizing what it was really about. And it's not about the purchasing and all that. That stuff, man, that right there is such a Trojan horse virus that takes a hold of you. I'm driving the Camry. That's my mom's Camry. She gave it to me. It's used. Yo, I done had Cadillacs, I done had all types of cars. I'm like this, like I don't want no car note. At a pandemic, I didn't have no car note. I don't want no car note. I don't want none of this stuff. You know what I want?
Show had a car note on the car you couldn't
Relax.
drive.
Huh?
Had a car note on a car note on a car you could not drive because it couldn't go anywhere.
That's why I had it during the pandemic. I had to turn my car in. It just sat. And I was just like, man, think about everybody on the street who got a car and the car just sit there. Think of how much inefficiencies we have in our country just because the mind is always about like, yo, ego and mind. I want to have more than you. Yeah. You know? But when you start doing the work, you start thinking about it from a different way. You start thinking about, yo, I am you. When you break down quantum theory, quantum physics, there's no separation between people. There's no separation between anything. It's all a myth.
I feel like sometimes when people materialize things that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but I've seen like certain instances where people have those type of things and that makes them feel better about themselves so that they can be like, well, I got this and I got that, instead of actually being a good person inside or just actually doing your work in the inside, your mental.
Yeah.
So they use those things to cover up who they really are.
Yeah, that we masquerade, and it's our pains that we're really trying to fill that void with. And I was saying that when I was in church, I just didn't understand the mechanics to be able to help people to move through it, because I've worked with people who are suicidal suicidal one day, not suicidal the next. Right? That's just the drastic shifts we've seen. But I've worked with people who are just high-end athletes, but it's about, again, just feeling good. If you feel good, you don't really care about too much else, right? But when the commercials come like, hey, you better get this. If you don't get this, if you don't have this, then you're gonna miss out, and you're not gonna get to feel good. And if you don't get to feel good, guess what happens? You don't get to feel good. That's literally what happens. And that's where we're running from. But we don't understand that, that mental emotional work gets you there.
In the beginning, you talked about you had things at home that we've seen nothing about. Let's talk about what you be doing at home.
I thought the mental health gym was enough. You say it's more.
Oh, man.
Introduce us.
Yeah. So I have vibration platforms. One's called the Power Plate. I've used that probably for the last 12 years. So let me break it down to you like this. So your body has an armor underneath your skin. It's called your fascia. And your muscles, people think that their muscles is the thing that connects the body. The muscles don't connect the body. The ligaments don't connect the body. None of that connects the body. The one thing that connects the body is your fascia, your connective tissue. It connects everything. So when we say the issues in the tissues, I'm now starting to understand, okay, the issues are really in the fascia. And if you look at fascia looks like this webbing. It's like 3-dimensional webbing. It's amazing, man. It's amazing how our bodies are. And underneath the surface, it shifts and it moves based on how you move. And we are starting to look at the fascia as known as the intranet. Intranet is like, the internet is worldwide, right? Everybody can access the intranet. But if I work for a company that have an intranet, that's their own specific version of the internet in there. That's their community that can log onto that intranet. Or your body has an intranet and communicates through that fascial network. This is what we're starting to understand. And so when you start to, again, think about all these thoughts and emotions and feelings you're having, that's what's being charged, the fascia. So when you look at your fascia, you have fascial lines that run in many different planes. And one of the biggest lines is at the bottom of your feet that run up to the top of your head. And guess what happens when you stick your feet into small shoes? That fascia starts to mold itself all the way up to your head, but it molds itself in a very destabilized way. Because when you are in shoes that squeeze your feet in there, look at this. Do you think I have balance like that? Do I have balance like that, or do I have balance like that? These are our hands. These are our feet. We start putting mittens on our feet. and our feet have atrophied. They've gotten weak. And because they've gotten weak, again, your fascia connection tissue, what you think that's happening just at your feet is taking place all the way up to the top of your head and throughout your whole body. So what I do at home, you can go get a butter knife, use the back of a butter knife. You can use any type of object that has like a clean little surface that's not too sharp, and start going over spots of your body and start to scrape that fascial tissue and free it up. It feels like glue. And if you sit for long periods of time, you're glued up. And then too, go back to your feet. Your feet are already messed up. I'm just gonna let y'all know. I spent the last year redeveloping my feet.
Doing what?
Walking barefoot. One, I transitioned to a barefoot shoe. Okay. So I started getting my feet and I start getting energy, blood, back into my toes. Okay. Your toes are atrophy. Imagine what happened if you walked around all day with mittens on your hands. What would happen?
So what kind of shoes do you wear? Now I'm looking at your shoes.
These are called barefoot shoes. These are called zero drop. They don't have a heel. When you have a heel and you elevate yourself, your foot and your calf all the way up is going to be shortened. So now people, I got headaches. I got jaw issues. That's coming from your feet. Shut up. It's coming from your feet.
I learned something today. I know that.
All these NBA athletes right now are messing up their ankles, their feet, their knees. What's happening? You're not supposed to squeeze your feet into a shoe like that. Back in the day, those players had a shoe that was more flat. It had a more wider box too, so let their toes to open up a little bit more. And they trained more. So you got multiple things going on. And no one would think that causes mental health issues. Think about your spine.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I never even heard anything like that.
Yeah, I'm in class, though.
So those everything that we're doing is unlearning. Let's talk about the feet. So the feet got weak from sticking them in shoes. And then we stuck them in shoes that are not conductive anymore. So we start putting them into a shoe that's like more like rubber and all these non-conductive materials. And what that's done is that's disconnected you from the earth. The earth actually has a charge to it. It has a negative charge to it. It's by the lightning, that's electricity that's hitting that ground, right? When we touch the earth, we get recharged with those negative ions, and it goes and cancels out the positive ones, which causes all this inflammation. This is the swelling in the body. This is the pain in the body. We're disconnected from that. You ever heard of reflexology?
I've heard of it.
So reflexology, they're showing you that how all your organs are showing up in your feet. Basically, you can stimulate the organs that's here in your feet. Why? Because again, the fascia and the organs, they connected. So again, if your feet are like this, what's happening to your organs? You're changing how you digest. You're changing a lot of things. And then let's go back into the food. The food used to be, again, we on the land, we kill a buffalo, right? We're going to cook that buffalo. How long do you think it take us to eat that?
The whole buffalo?
Just a piece of it.
Just a piece.
Not long.
Well, let's think about it. It ain't stewed. It ain't in a beef stew. We had to go cook that thing out on the fire. You think that meat, ain't no seasoning on it, it ain't no tenderizing it. So we out on the land and we eating, right? And so what does that do to our jaws?
Hurt it because it's tough.
No. Our bodies are adaptive machines. There's a symbiote. Whatever environment you put it to, it's gonna do its thing. So it's gonna say, you want to eat this tough meat? Guess what happens? Strong jaws. So what happens to us? Food is soft. Weak jaws. Orthodontics. All these things are popping up because of what we used to do. Yeah. Now we're weak. We're on the land. We're again, feet on the ground. I want everybody to pay attention. I want you to pay attention to when you walk out the door. Do you feel your toes grabbing the ground? Or are you just shuffling your feet through space and time? And then when you think about that, I want you to think about this. you have proprioception in your feet. You have like, especially like in your arch area, it's like so much proprioception, meaning the ability to take in stimulus. When your feet are in a shoe and you have all these micro muscles and blood vessels now that not getting blood anymore, you've lost proprioception to your feet. You've lost stimulation to your feet. So you don't even know where your legs are in space and time. This is why guys are getting injured. They coming down, they landing. You don't even know where you're landing because you're on a flat surface with no stimulus, right? Your shoe cuts you off from the stimulus even more. And so when you land, that brain-foot connection is distorted. So it's a huge thing just in mental health, just with your feet. Just those two things alone have cut us off.
I was thinking about when I wore heels.
So if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna wear the heels and all that, like my girl out every day, I like, look, work your feet, roll your feet out, get a tennis ball, get a ball with like these little grooves on it because you need to get that stimulation back to your feet. You'll be surprised at what that does to you mentally, emotionally. When you roll your feet out, that line that I talked about that runs up the back of the calf all the way up the neck to the head, right? So if that's pulling and that's causing tension, again, the body follows, the mind follows the body too, right? So if it's like that, then all of a sudden you got what's called a bottleneck in your thoughts and your emotions. We have 60 to 90,000 thoughts running through our brain on a day-to-day basis, right? So what happens if the feet are cut off and the fascial line is distorted and now you got this bottleneck of emotions all stuck in your head? Everybody think about mental health and they always point here. This ain't mental health. This is just your head. You know what mental health is? This is
Your body.
I can affect your mental health from your feet. And guess what? In one finger, because you can go to certain points and you can stimulate those points. So I don't know how we talked about the stuff I do at home. So that's what I've been doing the last year. Is I've been really reconditioning my feet and I've been reconditioning my whole body. My neck was pulled forward because we doing this. We doing this all day. So now the fascia is now developing and hardening because of this motion. So if I'm in this motion, right, if you look at the spine actually communicates at a certain angle. And if that curve is off, then that signal now can't go as fast. So now when you get older, you see the people when they're older and they feel like why they turn their car and drive to the gas station, ladies? Why she going so slow? Because she don't have the communication. She don't have the spinal brain communication to make that move at that point in time because the fascial system is hardened. So now we're looking at it and we can really reverse aging just because we're starting to understand all the systems of the body.
Yeah.
But you can't do that and avoid mental health.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, that system, that ideology, like I don't want to deal with that. Like, okay, you won't be fully optimized because the issues are being held there. So when you release them, you feel better. Same way when you go to the bathroom, right? It's the same thing. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed or transferred. So that energy you take in, what happens to it? It got to go through a process. So that energy that you went through when you were grieving, but you didn't grieve, well, guess where's that? Still in there.
It's till this day. It's still in there. I wanted to talk about the Investors.
Okay.
We seen that you were on there. We're actually coming.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So you are a person I want to see. I would not be me if I didn't tell y'all my Uncle Steve Harvey is on that event as well. I love Steve Harvey.
Okay, yeah, we saw him last year.
Yeah, but let's talk about the event. We never been, so we just want to know what we should look forward to.
It's a lot of people. First of all, last year was a lot of people, man. It was thousands of people. The first year it was a lot of people, and that was pretty surprising because we were still like kind of in lockdown. So I was surprised to see that, but just a lot of learning. You know, they have a lot of people that you can go and get hyped up and educated on about how to, take care of your finances. And it's just so many different ways and so many things they're talking about in terms of finances. It's like they cover the whole thing and then bring in these people we've been looking up to and let them share their stories with money, because those stories never were really shared, growing up. Like, you never heard the type of moves Bill Cosby was making, or anybody in that time. Like, even now, you hear what about LeBron James is doing. Oh, he got this school, or they invested in this, or people talk about equity. You never heard those things. So now you get to come and you get to get educated on all of that. And then too, last year I hosted a Facebook panel, because I'm I host the Inner Wealth podcast, and they had me host that panel. And we were talking about some of Meta's initiatives and what they were bringing to the table in terms of social media. So yeah, it's a real good time. You network with a lot of people. It's like Black people made financial literacy cool.
Yeah. I can't wait to come.
Yeah, definitely a big event. It's something that I've been really looking forward to going to. So when we saw that you was on it, I'm like, yeah, it's time.
Yeah. And I know we've been trying to do things like that in the city. We just got to make sure, because when I went out to Atlanta, man, they supporting.
Listen.
Atlanta's showing up and showing out.
They showing out. Like, every big festival, like, that was the first Black Effect podcast festival that we had went to. Mm-hmm. And it was so many people there, like, and even like other podcasters, like, who got big names, or even just growing podcasts, like, it was such a good networking event. Like, I don't think we rubbed shoulders with nobody who was not willing to help. Like, it was just a real lit and learning experience. So I'm like, the Invest Fest. Love to hear about the Black people talking about money. Like,
yeah, like I said, when I went to the first one, I was like, I called back home. I was like, bro, we don't support each other like this, man. But they've been, I heard Deion Sanders talking about he wanted to move to Atlanta because he saw Black men in Benzes and stuff. So they've been on the entrepreneurial wave. It's just, for us, again, it's a mindset situation that we have to go through. But look, we here.
I was about to say, what we gonna do to make that change? And it's not a you, it's not a her, it's a we thing. Yeah. Like, it gotta be.
We here. That's what I said.
It's on the up and up. It's in the work.
Yes. So the podcast typically, they don't make it past the 5th episode.
We've been told.
We almost at 80.
You're almost 80. So you passed me.
It's gonna be 80. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's gonna be 80.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, this is work.
Oh, it's hard work. It's not like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing it, but it do come with a lot of research, a lot of networking, a lot of everything.
Well, I like being fully vulnerable and transparent about everything that I do and that I can be, but like, I had to take a break. I was burnt. Yeah. Getting the studio time, and I'm doing it all myself. Yeah. People think that you got some big team behind you, and some people do, but I don't.
Hello.
And I choose not to have one right now. I'm just like, I just handle this myself right now until I get to the next stage. Earn your leisure. Troy and Rashad is doing it out the crib. Mm-hmm. Still.
And they did.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
Still.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and guess what? You would have never known.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the setup is nice. Boom. So that means you don't even need a lot of things. Yeah. What you need is the value. Who's the value?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to show up.
Yeah. So, but I got burnt out, and I think I stopped at I did 50, close to 50 episodes, and I dropped a couple episodes, introduced some AI into it, but I'm still kind of burnt. Content right now is just, it's
you gotta
content all day.
It's so fast.
Yeah.
Everything is so fast. Trying to follow algorithms and I got caught up in trying to be an influencer for a second. Mm-hmm. I'm not an influencer.
You influence some people.
But that's not what I do. Like, I got a brick and mortar business. I'm a CEO of a company. I'm trying to take my company to franchise, and that's another thing we're doing too. We are doing crowdfunding where we raising capital equity where you have ownership within all of our projects. But I'm trying to build my systems But I got caught up in like, oh, I got to put out this content. I'm like, I got caught up in, why am I even doing this again? What am I doing it about? Like, okay, let me restructure. Like, this is about inception. Mm-hmm. This is to show people educate them what's wrong. Here's a solution. Mm-hmm. I don't
your
need
personal
to do nothing
experience.
else, man.
It's so crazy because you're talking about how did I do this? Like, sometimes the world makes you an influencer. Like, you don't pick when you want to be an influencer. I don't know how, but
Typically, the biggest influencers don't want to be influencers.
It's so
or
crazy.
they say they don't want to be influencers. I don't really know everybody personally, but
I'm around these people. I had some, like, during the pandemic, there was this one big influencer, big following, very pretty, had to fly up, man. She was gone to just do sessions, you know. You don't know you don't know what's coming behind that. There's another girl I know, big page, 1 million followers, and I asked her one day because she's what I would consider, I guess, a Amazonian type of woman. She's a big woman, but everything is in the right places, right? And so there you go with 1 million followers, right? Right. Like, whoa. So I asked her one day, I just was like, do you like doing what you do? Like, what do you think about it? How do you feel about it? She's like, I don't really even like going out the house because people are always staring at you. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's a cost.
Talk about it.
There's a cost to these lifestyles.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and this man was following me around. Now, that's no surprise. A man just keeps staring, and like we just kept crossing paths. Like if I cross paths with you again, I know something in my head. Like I know something too, and because
that's what he said.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like I don't know what he means. So it's just like, but in my head, that's why I'm just like, okay. And then he finally was like, "You adore," and it's just like, why couldn't you just say that in the beginning and like not, you know?
So he already knew who you was.
Yeah, so it's just like that type of stuff from a person that was so small. Like, I just always been a person in my shell, in my corner with my friends and my people. When I say I get overwhelmed with like a lot of followers, but I know that's what comes with it. But when it's actually happening and before your eyes faster than what you can see.
So I'll tell you how to deal with it. I'll tell you how I dealt with it because it was a couple years ago when Vice did like this documentary. I flew out to California and I'm like, they hit me up and was like, yeah, we want to do a documentary on you and stuff. I'm like, what? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, why? You want to do that? They're like, yeah, we want to do it on your story. I'm like, I turned them down. I didn't even want to do it. And then they finally got me to come out there. I did it, right? And then they dropped it, right? And I remember when I started seeing the comments, and I went down this dark rabbit hole, went down this dark place, and it was for a moment. And in that moment, it was like, you can either stay here, you get a sense of how people really deal with this. You know, when you talk about the stars and stuff like that, like this is a real thing. So now I'm seeing in real time what they deal with. And I'm like, you know what? You never get too high or too low based on anybody, what they say about you. You know? Mm-hmm. It's like, Wayne Dyer had this statement saying, being independent of the good opinion of others. The good opinion of others. So that means, even if you tell me how great I am, it don't matter. Mm-hmm. So if you can tell me how great I am, it don't matter. Then if you tell me I ain't shit, it don't matter either.
I like
right?
that.
Your praise or your criticism doesn't affect me either way, you know.
Leave that off on that note. We do appreciate you coming out, especially with your busy schedule. We know you got a lot going on. And thanks for thinking of us. And we enjoyed our experience at Inception. If you got anything else you want to tell the people, let them know.
So again, just last thought is just we're trying to scale what we're doing. We want to take, Inception to the next level and bring, what you experience to the masses. So you have the opportunity to invest into it. You can go to it at thinkinception.com and all the information is there.
We will put that link in the description box below. You guys know where to find us. RT, Adore, the letter N, Daisy, on all platforms. That's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Yeah, until next time.